Hello, everybody, and welcome to PMI Northeast Ohio Chapter's Tech Thursdays webinar. Today, we have our guest speaker, Serena Roberts, and she is presenting creating brilliant dashboards with Tableau for project managers. And before we get started, I just want to give everybody an overview about the series. This is our Tech Thursdays webinar, and this is something that we hold every third Thursday of the month. Our primary focus is on project management tools and techniques. We've had some great presentations in the past, so we hold one every month. Next week's topic is still to be announced, but we plan on having one on the 21st. And so stay tuned, and we will announce that as soon as that is ready. If you stick around towards the end of the presentation, we will also hand out the PDU codes, which the PMP and program management professionals can use to earn one technical PDU. Throughout the presentation, if you guys have any questions, feel free to use either the chat or the Q&A options in Zoom and submit your questions. Serena will try to take pauses, and if we can answer those as we go through. We do record these sessions and we make them available on our YouTube channel, so you guys can access those there. So that's a useful place to go and get all of the past presentations as well. And towards the end of the presentation, we also send out a quick survey that has proved really helpful in the past. We've gotten some great topics out of some of the suggestions from the participants. So please take some time out and fill that out. That really helps us out. Without further ado, today's speaker, Serena Roberts, she is the VP of Data Visualizations at Via Gurus. She is based in Minneapolis, and she has over a decade of experience in the analytics industry. She started her career selling and marketing analytic tools before transitioning more towards data visualizations, and she's held a lot of different roles in leadership, and she's had experience in training in a lot of different capacities. So without further ado, I will hand it off to her and let her get started. So Serena, you can go ahead and start sharing your screen.
All right, thanks very much. Let me share my screen. Okay. All right. You move this out of the way. All right. Let me know if you can't see my screen. So yes, hello everyone. I am Serena Roberts. I am here based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Would love to, I know you guys actually typically meet virtually as it is. So, but each time I do one of these virtual events, I don't know if you're like me, but I'm just longing for that social interaction. So this is as close as I'm going to get for a while, and I will take it. So thanks for being here with me. So yes, today we are going to take a look at some samples of what you can do with project management data in Tableau. And so there's really kind of three things that I want you to take away from today's talk, is to really understand the components of what it takes to develop data visualizations. I know that many of you guys are at least most of you guys are project managers by trade, but my guess is that some of you are probably dipping into, using Excel to manage your projects and your sprints and your burn downs and all of that stuff, because the out of the box reporting capabilities that you get from project management tools like Jira and Asana only go so far. So partly I want to just kind of touch on the components of building data visualizations for any purpose. And then we can take a look at some examples of what you can do with project management data inside Tableau. And then we're going to build something, just live, something very simple, live on the fly, so you guys can just maybe reduce that level of intimidation that you might have in getting your hands on a tool like Tableau. Any questions? I'll pause there. Any questions?
Nope, no questions so far.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let me advance my slide here. Okay, so I talked about the components of building a data visualization. This is just very general, right? So we always start out with getting the data. That's the crucial piece of it. You gotta access the data. You probably have to do some shaping, some transformations to it to get it ready to then build your data visualization. And then the third component of that is sharing that out with your your business stakeholders or whoever might find value in consuming what you have developed. So I just want to be, take a moment and very clearly define these three components of building a visualization. And then what I'm going to do is touch a little bit on the tools that Tableau offers that are relative to each of these components. So the first step is the data. The second step is the data visualization, and the third step is the sharing out. So when we get into the demo here, I'm going to show you a tool called Tableau Prep very quickly, and then we'll look at Tableau Desktop, and then we'll talk about Tableau Server. But before we get into that, I want to take just a quick minute and pause on this 80-20 rule, because 80% of this effort usually falls on getting your data into the appropriate, format and shape, so you can actually do something useful with it in whatever presentation layer you're working with, whether it's Tableau or Excel or whatnot. And then, funnily enough, right, the 20% that you spend actually building your data visualization is what people see, right? It's the tip of that iceberg. So, and I want to make sure we talk about that, because my guess is that a lot of you probably don't. If you've got analytics departments, reporting departments that you can lean on within your organization, you may not be privy to everything that goes into developing these reports. Or if you do it yourself, you probably know that rule very well, but just wanted to take a moment to pause that. There's more to this work, much more to this work than you see on the surface. Okay, so Tableau Prep. Tableau Prep is Tableau's it's essentially an ETL tool. For those of you that don't know what ETL stands for, that's extract, transform, and load. So you can use Tableau Prep to connect to your data source, whether that be a source system on-premise, in the cloud, a flat file on a network drive, or even your local hard drive, public cloud sources, Google Sheets. You can use Tableau Prep to connect to a large variety of data sources. You can actually connect to systems like Jira through either ODBC or JDBC third-party drivers. We're not going to demo that today, because that is a little trickier than it sounds. But so Tableau Prep is really for spending that 80% effort, right? So it provides a visual user interface for making some basic to intermediate and some even advanced transformations on your data. Like, you can do things like rename your columns. You can edit values that are in your data source. You can group them into custom groups. You can pivot from rows to columns and columns to rows. You can aggregate to different levels of aggregation. You can create custom fields. And then essentially what you're doing is you're creating a very usable data source that you can then connect to Tableau Desktop to start beginning your development. Any questions on here? I will take like 5 minutes of this presentation and actually show you a Tableau Prep workflow that I've built for this particular project. But I want to pause here for any questions. I think we might have.
Yeah, I think we do have one question from Amir. He is asking, can we connect Tableau to Microsoft Project data source?
I am not sure. What's the file extension on a Microsoft Project data source?
I'm not sure. I think it's .prj. If I'm not mistaken.
PRJ.
I'm not.
Okay. I haven't tried.
I believe Microsoft Project .ppm.
.ppm. Okay. I know that you can connect to Microsoft Access, and you can connect to obviously Excel and CSV files. So
I think it would depend on what Microsoft Project server you're running. If you have a SQL database, then you can use a SQL connector to connect to it. And if you are on Office 365, I think you can. You might have to look at some extensions similar to what you talked about with Jira. There might be some extensions out there for that. So I think that you should be able to connect to it.
Yeah, I think there may not be a direct connection to that particular file type, but either exporting it or translating it to some other type of file or source that you can connect with, or using one of those third-party drivers might be an option for you. But I have not tried to connect to that data source yet. But great question.
Yep, that is the only questions we had so far.
Okay.
Oh, actually, we just had.
I see that.
Oh, yeah. So yes, you can connect to Microsoft Project using an ODBC driver.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, and there are tons of those third-party drivers out there that work both for Tableau Prep and Tableau Desktop as well. So my advice would be, if you have a data source and you want to see if you can connect to it, give it a whirl. And if there's not a native driver, then Google it. My guess is that someone has probably built a driver for that. So try it before you give up. Any other questions?
That's the only question we got so far.
Okay. Okay, so that's Tableau Prep. So we're assuming that we have a usable data set, and then we can bring this into Tableau Desktop. And the interfaces between Tableau Prep and Tableau Desktop are they have kind of the same look and feel and sort of user style. So it's very, you're dragging and dropping pills. It's a very sort of clean and simple interface. But Tableau Desktop is a really powerful tool. There's a lot of just out-of-the-box functions that you can leverage. And then you can also write custom calculations to, it's in a language called TabQL, is Tableau's sort of proprietary version of SQL, but it's very, very similar. So if you have experience writing SQL, then this should be an easy transition for you. And that's really where you can do a lot of the sort of mind-blowing things that you might have seen other people do with Tableau visualization. So Tableau Prep is where you're prepping your data. Tableau Desktop is where you're doing the bulk of that development. And then once you're done with that and you're ready to share, they have a product called Tableau Server. And there's a couple different options here, but most commonly organizations will implement their own instance of Tableau Server across their organization. And most or all of the employees in that organization will have access to Tableau Server, and you can organize different projects by data subject or business function. And then that just becomes this repository where people can go out and search for these meaningful dashboards. And they can comment, they can set alert schedules when a report refreshes. They can get reminded that there's new data available. So lots of things there to leverage to collaborate and share. Any questions so far? Take a minute here for you guys to.
No questions, but I did. I have a question on the previous slide that you showed. You show that people it's very easy to drag and drop and create visualizations. So how can you use Tableau for sort of like a self-serve data export tool? You know, where you can kind of provide the data to all of your users and they can export it however they need it, and just export that to Excel and do whatever they want from there, or just kind of explore from there. Do you know if there's any options in Tableau to do something similar?
For sure. Yeah, there's actually multiple options. So you can actually publish a data source. So I could publish a data visualization to Tableau server. I could also publish a data source, right? And then anybody with access could go download that data source and do their own analysis and build their own visualizations. And then in addition to that, if someone finds a visualization that someone else built that's very close to what they might need, but they want to make some tweaks to it, they can copy that. They use that as a starting point, and then take it further from there to suit their needs. And there's quite a bit of development that you can do inside the web interface in a web authoring mode, as well as having the Tableau Desktop. Now I will say that there are some licensing issues. There's a couple different tiers of licensing, but most importantly, the difference between being I think they call it a viewer and a creator. So a creator can do that authoring, whether it's in desktop or inside the web interface. And then a viewer is really just meant to be those consumers. So you have to put a little bit of thought into understanding who's going to want to do that additional analysis, who's going to want to try to do some of that themselves, and who really just wants to be served up information. But yes, you can absolutely do that.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's the only question that I have, and we had no more questions come in so far.
All right, cool. So I think, yeah, live demo. Let me escape out of this, and so what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to show you Tableau Prep really quick. So this is a super basic Tableau Prep workflow, where I am taking essentially two data sources that were both flat files. Move this bar here into a place that's not going to bother me. Okay. So two flat files. I'm joining them, right? So this is a left join, and I can tell Tableau Prep that I want to join these two fields based on project name. And you can also do, an outer join, a right join, an inner join. You can have multiple fields here that you're joining these tables on. So lots of options there. And then these clean steps is where I can do my transformations. So, and it'll keep track of what you've done. So, I've merged a couple fields here. I've removed a couple fields here. I created a calculated field. I did some grouping and replacing. Maybe where there was a project name in one sheet that was off by, a letter, right? Whatever that might be. It didn't exactly match up. And so that the join results were skewed because that particular project was named two different things in those two different files. So I can account for that very easily. And then I have this output node here. And this is essentially where I say, okay, so this is my results. These are my data results. and here's where I want to save this file, and here's the file type that I want to save this in. And Tableau Prep gives you 3 options. You can save it as a hyper file or a Tableau data extract. These 2 are both proprietary to Tableau. Hyper is best used for files that have large amounts of data. So it's just sort of their data set production engine on steroids. And then their Tableau data extract has been what they originally started with. That the Tableau data extract might actually go away and be completely replaced by Hyper, but right now you still have both of those options, as well as the CSV. So when I want to run this data flow, I just simply click Run, and I would say replace, but we'll just go ahead and cancel that because we don't need to do that. But it runs very, very quickly. I mean, this is a small data set, but you can run millions of rows, in a matter of seconds or minutes, depending on the hardware that you have this running on. So it's really, really powerful. Let's pause here for questions before we move on to Tableau Desktop.
Yeah, we do have one question.
Okay.
The question is, can you perform data validation steps within Tableau Prep?
Well, I would say, I guess, not in an automated way, but you could, I mean, definitely create like a calculated field to flag certain fields or certain rows as red or needs attention or something like that. But so my answer is yes, you can do that, but not without a decent amount of human intervention. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I think that answers the question. We have a couple more questions. First one is, can you explain the left and right join and the impact of those?
Sure, I sure can. So the left join simply means that I'm going to keep all of the rows in my table on the left, which is this table. It's my information technology. Get through the rest of that file name. But so it'll say, this is the table that's on the left side of my join. This is the table or the data source that's on the right side of my join. So when I say that this is a left join, it's telling me that I'm going to keep every single row in the table on the left side of my join and only bring in the rows that match the left side of the join from the right side of the join. So I can look down here and see that there are 231 rows in the left side of my join, and only this small subset matches a row on the right side of my join. So I still have all of the 231 rows from my left side of the join, plus my 62 from the right side of the join, for a total of 292. So if I were to say that this should be a right-hand join, it would just be the converse of that. So I'd be keeping everything on the right side of my table and excluding anything that doesn't match from the left side of my table. An inner join is only keeping those rows that exist in both tables and excluding everything else. And an outer join is keeping all rows from all tables. So when to use what join just sort of depends on what you're trying to do, very much on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, I think that helps answer that question. We have another question that is, does Power BI have a similar tool to Tableau Prep, or how could you use Tableau Prep and integrate it with Power BI or something like Power BI?
Yep. So yes, I have used Power BI. I'm actually working on at a client right now who has decided to standardize on Power BI, like many organizations have done, because it just comes with most people's licensing package. And Power BI does have what they call a Power Query Editor that allows you to do some very basic transformations, some very basic data modeling, but, and my opinion may be biased, but in my opinion, there are some serious limitations to what that can do compared to Tableau Prep. But yes, there is something there that tries to check that box.
Yeah, I think that was helpful.
I can hook you guys up with the Power BI guru for your next webinar. All right. Are we good to move on?
We just had one more question come in.
Sure.
And the question is asking about large data sets. So example, a CSV file over 1 terabyte. So how does Tableau handle such large data sets?
It can handle it, yes. It just depends on the the specs of the hardware that the program is running on. Once you get over a certain number of rows and you're still trying to do things in flat files, you may want to look at alternatives. Like something in the cloud. So I won't say that no, it can't handle that, but don't be surprised if you're waiting for a Tableau Prep flow to take 10 or 15 minutes to run once you're getting up into that volume of data. But it can do it.
Okay, that's all the questions we've had so far.
All right. Okay, so I know that was just really the tip of the iceberg, just brushing the surface of what Tableau Prep can do, but I wanted to show you guys that this tool is available and just a quick introduction to it. So hopefully that was helpful. All right, so we have modeled our data. This is essentially what my data output looks like after running that through that Tableau Prep workflow. It's just an Excel file. So then I bring it into Tableau and we can take a look at sort of what's possible here. Let me put this into presentation mode. It looks a little cleaner. Okay, so, and I will say, like, I've been doing this work for a long time, and I'm trying to remember if I have ever actually done a dashboard for like a PMO group or like a project management initiative like this. And I admittedly have a terrible memory, but I can't think of a single time. So I'm starting to wonder if you guys are just like, being ignored. You guys just aren't getting the love when it comes to reporting and dashboarding. So this was my sort of best attempt at figuring out, like, what are the valuable views that that you guys might be interested in. So if this is slightly off the mark, you can definitely blame me for that. But the main intention here is really just to kind of show you what's possible. Like I said, if you've got the data and the tools to shape that data in the way that you need, the possibilities of how you can visualize that with Tableau are just endless, right? So it really just comes down to the data that you have and your imagination and your skill level, or your access to skill level, I should say. So we'll start off at the top here. This is the project's master, right? So for people that are managing PMO groups and they need oversight across multiple projects, that may be something that tools like Jira and Asana struggle to give you, is what's going on across a large number of projects and how can I stay ahead of issues. So here we're looking at project budget budgets versus actuals. So my gray bar on the top is the budget, and my my green or red bar within that is the actual. So I can quickly see like, oh shoot, like this project here, this Fred project is in trouble. You know, might want to keep an eye on this Oracle migration, as well as this Force project. So at a really quick glance, I can start to see which projects I might need to give a little bit more attention to. Up here, I just have the ability to filter between active projects and completed projects. So if I just wanted to take a historical view of how we've done, I can simply select completed projects, and then I can see that view again. So it looks like, you know, the majority of those projects where we are over budget have already happened, which might lead me to believe that we have an issue with budgeting, right, and forecasting. Maybe we need to take a second look at that. And again, I can simply look at just those active projects, and that filters the whole view. So we'll go back to all, and then we'll go down to the next view. And this is probably going to be pretty familiar to you guys. It's that traditional sort of Gantt chart that shows me which projects are in the view, and you know where they are in sort of this red, yellow, green status. This bar here shows me where we're at relative to the view. So today's April 16th, so we can kind of see we're right in the middle of this view. I can also, so we only have data, like task level data for one project. I had badgered Prasanna for some sample data sets because I could not find any. And so he did give me some, but it's not comprehensive. So we can drill down into this. So what we've done is we have created a hierarchy inside Tableau Desktop to say, you know, the top of that level, that hierarchy is project name, and then we have the task, and then we have the subtask below that. So it allows you to create whatever hierarchy you need, so you can drill up and drill down as needed. But so I can drill down into this next level and then see at a task level what's going on with this particular scores project, and then which particular tasks might be at risk, or you know, what risk level, are they high, medium, low? And I'm a fan, and this is just preference, but I am a fan of taking advantage of the length, you know, the ability to just scroll down. So you have complete control over the size of your dashboard. So what I like to do is just take my width to the max, you know, what in a sort of a 16:9 ratio, like how big can I get that? And then I just use whatever vertical space I think I need, because you know, I know a lot of websites are going in that direction, and there's a lot of the principles in dashboard design that are taken from web design. So I can just keep scrolling down for that pertinent information. And if you notice here, I'm sort of starting with the highest level information, and then drilling down to that level of granularity, where if I want to see all of the tasks that are associated with this particular project, this will, when I click on that, it will filter my detail view below. And like I said, we do only have granular level detail for just this one project in this particular instance. So I can click here and I can see, you know, what are those down to the hours, down to the risk level, down to the developer, the start date, finish date. You know, what are the details of these projects, each of these items, should I need to dig into them any further. All right, I'm going to pause here for questions.
We do have a question about exporting the data to PowerPoint. So can you export these visualizations to a PowerPoint or anything quickly natively within Tableau?
You sure can. Yep. There's a couple options. Let me get out of presentation mode on this, and I will just quickly show you how that works. So if I go to the dashboard tab, I can export this as an image, and it just creates a PNG file, and then I can stick that into whatever PowerPoint, Word, you know, wherever I want that to go, just as easily as I would insert an image. It does not import it into a PowerPoint file itself, but in my opinion, so Power BI does have the ability to do that, and in my opinion, when you do that, like there's something that always gets distorted. It just doesn't look right, and then you end up having to tweak it anyway. So this, when you export it as an image, it's going to look exactly the way that you want it to. And you can also, like if I wanted to export that image that shows me only the active, when I export that image, it's going to bring with it only what's in that view. But good question. Okay.
The other question, we only have one more question, and that is about plug and play visualizations. So I'm guessing that means, is there any way, any add-ons that you can get where you can just kind of buy all the visualizations pre-made?
So there's don't think of it in terms of like buying, right? There are these, it's not showing up here because I'm not on a sheet. Let's go to a sheet. So this show me, if I were to start dragging things out onto this blank sheet, then these applicable show me options would start to become ungrayed out. So so it does try to apply some intelligence based on the the mix of measures and dimensions that you're dragging out onto that sheet, and it'll say, oh, you know what, maybe a tree map would be good for you. Maybe you need a box and whiskers plot. Maybe a bar chart with a reference line. So it does. It's got the Gantt as a show me as well. So there's that. You can use the show me functions if you're, for those of you that, might want to just get started with that. That's a great place to start. Alternatively, there is a resource called Tableau Public. And one of the greatest things about Tableau is literally its community. Its community is super active and super passionate. And we have people who, they do this kind of stuff for a living, and then they go home to, their cats or dogs or, husbands, wives, children. And then they do more Tableau development for fun because they just love it. And what they do with those for fun projects, or projects where, the data doesn't have any, there's no privacy issues with it, they can publish their works onto Tableau Public. And then people can set whether or not others can download their workbook and their data set. And so, so if you're browsing Tableau Public and you see something that's like, that's amazing, like I want to know how to do that, I want to use that type of visualization, and that the author has set the permissions for you to be able to download that workbook, you can just use that as a starting point and replace the data source. And there's just there's tons of ways to upskill in Tableau. There's the Makeover Monday that happens every Monday. There's the Workout Wednesday, and these are exercises and trainings that are driven by not by Tableau. They're not Tableau employees. They're just users who are super passionate about the tool. So yeah, so there isn't like a marketplace like you might see in Power BI where you can go and download these third-party things. But there is sort of a much less formal way to get that done with Tableau. Good question.
Okay, that is all the questions so far.
All right, cool. Well, let's jump to the resources tab and just kind of walk through this. So this is what I'm calling the resource master, right? So, you know, we all know that another aspect of this is to track resources and make sure that we've got the resources that we need lined up in the right time. So this is put together in a similar fashion as the project master. So at the top we have the resource type by week and the number of hours. So and again, it's budget versus actual. So I can see how I think these are developers are doing in week 5 versus, my weeks are not sorting correctly here, but so week by week I can look at you know, what's going on here. So I can see my developers, they've used 33 hours or all but 33 hours of the budgeted hours for that week. And then here I can see my analysts are 82 hours in the hole, 79 hours in the hole. And if there are no actuals, then that would mean that that's a future week. Actually, I think I'm just missing weeks 6, 7, and 8. Otherwise, I think I'm okay here. So so this is another sort of way to keep track of you know, how we're budgeting versus our actuals. So that high level information at the top. The next graph will show me my future resource needs. So and then this is a relative date filter here. So I can say, show me the resource needs for the next 3 months. I can say, okay, well, I actually want to see that for 6 months. And then my graphs will adjust to that. And if I want to focus on, wow, I really, you know, I struggle finding developers, so let me focus on that first here. This graph becomes a little bit, basically not very valuable at all, but what does happen down here is I can see the details of those particular rows. For which project, what their start date is, the number of hours. So for resource planning, that could be a good resource. And again, I've got some filters at the top. I can toggle between active and completed. I can also toggle between project managers. So if I just wanted to look at a single project manager to see how they're doing, I can take a look at that view. And extra points for anyone who gets the reference here with these project manager names. It's Parks and Rec. I'll just spoil that for you. Funny show. Okay, let me pause here for questions.
We had another question come in, and they're asking, can you limit who has access to specific data?
Yes, you can. So there's a couple ways that you can tackle security. So obviously you can create projects or think of them as folders. Back when we looked at the Tableau server environment. So you can create projects or specific folders and then only give access to certain people to those certain folders. So that's one way of doing it. You can implement role-based security or group-based security based on your Active Directory listings. And then in the data itself, you can apply role level security as well. And so you can do one or all three of those depending on just how securely you want to lock that down. Obviously, there's different levels of effort required in each of those. But yes, there are many ways that you can make sure that only the right people see the right data.
Okay, and we had another question come in, which is about can you view Tableau on a smartphone or tablet?
Yes, you can. You'll want to probably give a little bit more thought into your design. So there is a responsiveness built in but in my opinion, it's not foolproof. So if you know that you know, a large part of your audience, your users are going to be looking at a view, a dashboard on their phone, I would build a separate dashboard for that, just so you can control that user experience really well. It does mean that you're maintaining 2 separate dashboards for a single report, but they can be connected and refreshed, connected to the same data source and refreshed on the same schedule. But you make any changes, you would need to make it into 2 places. This really is the trade-off.
Okay, those were all the questions that have come in so far.
All right. So let's dig into this just a little bit. I kind of want to show you how this is put together. So these 2 tabs are the dashboard tabs that we just walked through, right? So PMO Project Master and our PMO Resource Master. And you can see that the little icon right to the left of the title is this 4-square grid, as opposed to these sheets over here, which don't have that. So this is the difference between a dashboard, which is these 2, and a worksheet or a report. And a dashboard is simply made up of worksheets or reports. So I started by building these individual reports on these individual tabs. And then I put them together, I pieced them together in the way that I wanted them into a dashboard. So if I wanted to do that again, I would just simply hit the dashboard, and it can give me a title of dashboard 3. And then I could start dragging these things out onto my sheet. And so if you do try to get into this, probably the biggest thing that I would caution you or make sure that you're aware of is the difference between tiled and floating. If you want to build a dashboard very quickly, it's always best to have this tiled option selected, because what it's going to do is it's going to fill the space with whatever whatever you drag out there. So for example, I can bring out budget and it's going to fill that space. Let's say I wanted to add a title. And then I just don't want the title to be that big, so I can drag that around. If I don't want to have these, the color legend on there, I can simply just remove them. I can then drag out, another view. And so here's a trick. By default, when you drag something out in the tiled option, it will bring out the color legends and the filters over on the right-hand side. But there's all this space here, right? That's done. So what I like to do, and this is where the tiled versus floating comes in, is if I want to have this be floating and just kind of sitting up here, I simply change this particular component of the dashboard from tiled to floating, and then my visuals take up the majority, the full width of that screen, and this can just kind of sit up here in the corner. And here's where I can set the size of my dashboard. So if I know I'm going to export this to a PowerPoint, I can set it to those exact dimensions, and I know that it'll fit really well when I do that image export. And you can go completely custom with it, and make those the width and height whatever you want them to be. So those are kind of the components of building a dashboard, is that you start by building the individual reports, and then you piece them together on a dashboard sheet. So we'll just delete that. So the last thing, wow, we only have 10 minutes left. So really quickly, I'm going to just show you guys how to connect to a data source, and we're just going to build something really quickly. And feel free to shoot your questions into the chat box or the Q&A, and we'll try to get to all of them. So I'm just going to go connect to a new data source. And I know that my data source is an Excel file. This is just a local file I have on my machine. And I'm going to drag out sprint management. Okay, so I can get a quick preview of what that data looks like and say, yep, okay, that's what I expect it to look like. And then I'm going to click on an empty sheet. All right, so this is a sheet, and this is where I'm going to build a report, right? And ideally, this report would make its way to a dashboard eventually, but right now I'm just building the one component of it. So let's see here. I know that I want to, the sprint, Tableau is interpreting this as a measure because it's a number, so it's sprints 1 through 8, but technically it's not a number. It's actually not a measure. It's a dimension because it describes, it's a descriptor of that row. So I'm just going to say no Tableau. It's not a measure. It's a dimension, and then that pops up into my dimensions section. All right, so let's say for this particular view, I want to get sort of a look at our, how my sprint is doing, right? So we're going to say, okay, I know I want to look at hours. And by sprint. But that's not quite the view that I want. So in order to get the view that I want, I am going to drag sprint out onto both the columns and the rows shelf. And so I can kind of starting to look like a report that you might see in some out-of-the-box project management or sprint management tool. I'm going to select this to be entire view, just so it's bigger and you guys can see this a little bit better. From here, I might want to color by status. So now I can see, what's added, what's been completed, what's incomplete, and what's planned. I can go in here and edit those colors and say, all right, well, maybe I want planned to be gray and I want added to be, completed to be greenish, and added can stay blue, sure. All right, so now we can kind of see the difference between, what's planned in our sprints, the future sprints that don't have any work completed or added, and those that do have work completed or added or incomplete. So I might actually want to take a look at the difference between hours and actual hours. So I know in my data set that only rows that have work completed have a value in the actual hours field. So if I were to try to drag actual hours onto this view, then I would lose data for all of my future sprints. So I'm going to just show you very quickly how to create a calculated field in Tableau. And normally I have a strong rule of thumb, like don't write code in a live demo, A, because people don't want to see it, and B, because it usually never works. But I just want to show you this to show you how easy it is to create a calculated field, just to kind of make this a little less intimidating. So I'm going to call this field hours adjusted, and I'm essentially going to write a basic if statement. So I'm going to say if, the logic here is that if the actual hours is null, then give me hours, else actual hours, and almost say end. Okay, so that's the logic. If actual hours is null, then give me the value from the hours column. Otherwise, leave it as actual hours. So I have now created a whole other column in my data set that gives me the actual hours if they exist. Otherwise, I'm getting the projected hours or the budgeted hours. So, so I could then swap this out for my hours, and what's going to change are the sprints that either have are in the past or that we're currently working on. Maybe to just give me a more actual view of what's happening in that sprint. And then I can do things like hide the title. I can edit this access because maybe I don't want it to say hours adjusted because no one's going to know what that means. And just little things to clean up the view and make it as easy to understand as possible. So that it can be as simple as that. It's very drag and drop. It's very very user friendly. So I'm going to stop here. That's really all I wanted to share and show you. We've got 4 minutes left to answer questions, unless Prasanna and you guys need to save a few minutes for your stuff at the end. I'll leave that up to you.
I think that was really helpful. So thank you, Serena. We only have one question, and that is just if there are any out-of-the-box templates for Tableau. It says specifically for project reporting, but you know, we can open that up too if there's really out-of-the-box templates for any type of reporting.
Yeah, well, you can have mine. I can make this available to you guys for sure. And then I would also encourage you to check out Tableau Public and search for project management or PMO and see if there's any dashboards that are out there that you could start with. I'm sure that there are consulting firms out there that have created starter templates that you might be able to buy. But in the reality of the situation, everyone's data source is so incredibly different and nuanced. You know, even people who are using the same systems, if you've done any customization to it, then your data sources are going to be modeled differently. And so because of that, you know, creating a template for a dashboard that will work for any and all data source is virtually impossible to do. So my recommendation is that you start from scratch. You can take inspiration from others that you find, but you are probably not going to save yourself any time or money by starting with someone else's work.
Okay, I think that is all the questions that we had. So I'm going to go ahead and take the screen and share the PDU code with everybody.
Stop sharing. Okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank Serena for taking out the time and walking us through the Tableau dashboard and creation of it. I think you know, it really highlights how simple it was to create those calculated fields and quickly get to some of the visualizations by just dragging and dropping some fields. So thank you for coming and speaking to the community. So thanks for
my pleasure.
Thanks for that, Serena. For the people who are certified with the PNP or PGMP, you guys are able to see the PDU code on my screen now. You guys can take a screenshot, go to the website, and you guys should be able to claim your 1 hour of technical PDU. Where you guys are going to get a survey at the once you guys exit the Zoom meeting. Please take a minute out to fill that survey out. That's really helpful for us, and we hope to see you guys again next month. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.